Be me, Dr. Rachel, clinical psychologist and research faculty at a major university, devoted 15 years to studying gender dynamics and emotional intelligence, always considered myself firmly on the right side of history regarding equality, believed wholeheartedly that progress meant acknowledging women's experiences, validating their struggles. Men had dominated conversation for centuries. Now it was time to listen to the other half. Get grant funding for massive research project on empathy and gender relations. Proposal was actually about proving women's superior emotional intelligence. Wanted to demonstrate scientifically that women were better at perspective taking, more naturally empathetic. Figured this would support everything I already knew to be true. Designed comprehensive study, surveys, clinical interviews, neurological testing, empathy mapping exercises. Recruited over 4,000 participants across different age groups, socioeconomic backgrounds. Took 3 years to complete data collection. Felt confident the whole time, occasionally joking with my research team about how this would finally prove what we all know. They'd laugh. We'd continue coding responses. Start analyzing data in year 4. Something's wrong. Numbers aren't making sense. Women's empathy scores for male emotional experiences are low, like really low. Assume there's methodological error. Spend 2 months checking and rechecking everything. Bring in outside statistician, someone I don't know personally. He confirms, the data is solid, the findings are real. Sit in my office at 2 a.m. staring at spreadsheets. Women scored dramatically lower than men when asked to identify, understand, and validate masculine emotional experiences. The empathy gap wasn't what I expected at all. It was running in the opposite direction. Feel my stomach drop. This can't be right. This can't be what the science is showing. Decide to dive deeper into the qualitative data, the actual interview transcripts. Maybe the numbers are misleading, maybe the context will explain. Start reading through hundreds of recorded sessions. One interview with Marcus, 34, middle management. I feel like I'm just a utility, he said. Like my value is completely tied to what I produce, what I provide. If I lost my job tomorrow, I don't know who I'd be. Female interviewer's response in transcript. Well, women have dealt with being objectified for centuries, so... She didn't follow up, didn't explore his feelings, just deflected. Read another one. David, 28, recently divorced. The hardest part was everyone assuming I did something wrong, that I must have cheated or been abusive or failed somehow. Nobody asked if I was okay. My own sister said, "What did you do to her?" Interviewer response. Well, statistically, men are more likely to... She never let him finish, never acknowledged his pain. Go through transcript after transcript. Pattern is consistent and devastating. Women interviewers repeatedly dismissed, minimized, or redirected when men discussed. Pressure to be stoic and strong, fear of being seen as weak or failing, loneliness, and lack of emotional support systems, confusion about their role in modern relationships, feeling disposable, anxiety about financial responsibility, terror of showing vulnerability. The loneliness one kept appearing. So many men talking about having no one to talk to, no close friendships, no outlet. One guy, Thomas, 41. I haven't had a real conversation about my feelings in probably 6 years. My wife thinks I don't have any. My friends would think I was gay or broken if I tried. So I just don't. Interviewer. Have you considered that maybe men need to do the work of building emotional intimacy with each other instead of expecting women to do that labor? Technically correct statement, maybe, but completely missing the point of his pain. He was telling her he was drowning and she handed him a pamphlet about swimming lessons. Start feeling sick. Recognize myself in these interviewer responses. Remember conversations with my ex-boyfriend, with male colleagues, with my brother. How many times did I do exactly this? Keep reading. It gets worse. Neurological testing section. Empathy mapping exercises using fMRI. Participants shown scenarios of people in distress, asked to imagine their emotional state. When scenarios involved women in distress, strong activation in empathy-related brain regions for both male and female participants. When scenarios involved men in distress, Male participants still showed empathy activation. Female participants showed significantly reduced activation, sometimes none at all. One scenario, man crying alone in car after being laid off. Another, teenage boy being told to man up after expressing sadness. Another, elderly man describing loneliness after wife's death. Women's brains just didn't light up the same way. Like there was a wall, a barrier to accessing that empathetic response. Check the data by age cohort. The younger the women, the worse the empathy scores for male experiences. Women over 50 did somewhat better. Women under 30 scored devastatingly low. It's getting worse over time, not better. Generational data shows empathy gap widening significantly. Go back 15 years in comparable studies. The decline is sharp, recent, and accelerating. Spend 3 weeks barely sleeping. Rerun every analysis. Bring in another outside consultant, a woman this time, specialist in gender research. She looks at everything, takes her time, comes back with confirmation, findings are robust and significant. Rachel, she says carefully, you need to prepare for the reaction this will get. She won't say it directly, but I can tell she's troubled too. Start reading the open-ended survey responses. Question was, describe a time when you felt a man's emotional experience was difficult to understand or relate to. Thousands of responses. Most didn't even try to describe attempting to understand. Instead, they wrote things like, men don't really have emotional experiences the same way women do. It's hard to relate because they've never had to deal with real oppression. Male feelings are usually just anger or entitlement. I can't relate to feeling pressure to provide because that's a choice they make. When men say they're lonely, it's usually because they're not doing the work. Barely any responses show genuine attempt to imagine male subjective experience. Compared to male responses about not understanding women, men at least tried. I know I don't understand what it's like to fear walking alone at night the way women do. I try to imagine the pressure of beauty standards, but I know I can't fully grasp it. I wish I understood better how to support my wife when she's overwhelmed. They acknowledged limitation while recognizing validity of the experience. Women's responses mostly denied the validity of the male experience altogether. Sit with this for days. Everything I've built my career on feels shaky. Not the feminism itself, not the advocacy for women's rights, but the assumption I'd always made, that women were naturally more empathetic, more emotionally intelligent, more capable of understanding. What if we'd gotten so focused on validating women's experiences that we'd completely lost the ability to see men as fully human? What if in the process of fighting objectification, we'd objectified men in a different way, reduced them to privileged oppressors without internal lives worth examining? Remember a conversation at a conference last year. Male colleague Jonathan had mentioned struggling with his teenage son. He won't talk to me, Jonathan said. I think he's depressed, but he just shuts down. I don't know how to reach him. What did I say? Something about toxic masculinity and how he needed to model vulnerability. Technically true, maybe, but did I actually hear him? Did I acknowledge his fear, his helplessness, his pain as a father watching his child suffer? Or did I just give him the theoretical framework and move on? I gave him the pamphlet about swimming lessons. He was drowning too. Start going through my own clinical practice notes. I'm a therapist. I see patients, review my cases from past 5 years, have 7 male clients currently. Look at my session notes with fresh eyes. Notice how often I interpret their statements through lens of privilege. Marcus tells me he feels invisible. I wrote possible deflection from acknowledging advantages. David talks about fear of vulnerability. I noted examine cultural masculinity conditioning, but did I actually validate the fear itself? Thomas describes loneliness. I have written, explore why he hasn't built emotional support network, instead of sitting with the loneliness. I've been doing therapy wrong for male clients, not completely wrong, but missing something fundamental. Missing them. Yeah, as full human beings with valid suffering. Feel wave of shame. These men trusted me with their pain, and I academically analyzed it instead of truly feeling with them. That's what empathy is. Feeling with. Not explaining, not contextualizing, not theorizing. Feeling with. Do I even know how to do that anymore for men? Try an exercise. Imagine being a man. Not theoretically, but really imagine it. Imagine you're taught from childhood that crying is shameful. Imagine your parents get uncomfortable when you express fear. Imagine your friends mock any sign of weakness. Imagine growing up with the message that your value is in what you do, not who you are. Imagine being told constantly that you're privileged while also being told your feelings don't matter. Imagine being expected to be strong, capable, successful, stoic. Imagine failing at this and having nowhere to turn. Imagine being lonely but knowing that admitting loneliness makes you pathetic. Imagine fearing that you're broken because you can't meet impossible standards. Imagine loving someone who sees you primarily as a potential threat. Imagine your struggles being dismissed because statistically your demographic has advantages. Imagine being told to do the work on yourself when you're already drowning. Imagine being invisible unless you're useful or dangerous. Imagine being disposable. Sit with these imagined feelings for 15 minutes. Notice how hard it is. Notice my mind's resistance. Notice how it wants to add, but women have it worse, to every single point. That qualifier, that need to compare suffering. That's the empathy gap right there. Empathy isn't comparative. Empathy doesn't say, but others have it worse. Empathy says, I see your pain, and it's real. Spend the next month doing nothing but reviewing the research. The findings are clear across every measure. Women significantly underestimate male loneliness, by average of 60%. Women unable to accurately identify male emotional distress in photographs scored 35% worse than men identifying female distress. Women rate male problems as less severe than men rate female problems, controlling for objective severity. Women less likely to offer support to distressed men than men offer to distressed women. Women more likely to attribute male struggles to personal failure rather than systemic issues. Women show reduced empathy activation for male pain in neurological testing. Younger women score worse than older women on all measures. The data shows a generation of women increasingly unable or unwilling to empathetically connect with men's genuine struggles. And I'm part of that generation. I'm part of the problem the research is revealing. My research. My problem. Have to decide what to do with this. The professional terror is real. I know what publishing this will mean. Colleagues will be angry. I'll be accused of giving ammunition to misogynists. My feminist credentials will be questioned. Might lose. Friends, professional relationships. Might damage my career irreparably. The data will be misused, definitely. But the data is real. These findings are robust, and they matter. Men are suffering in ways we're not seeing, not acknowledging, not validating. That suffering is creating the masculine identity crisis everyone keeps talking about. And women's empathy collapse is making it worse. We're failing half the population. I've been failing half my patients. Sit down to write the paper. It's the hardest thing I've ever written. Have to be precise, careful, clear. Have to present the findings honestly without sensationalizing. Have to acknowledge limitations while standing behind the significance. Have to write something that will withstand intense scrutiny. Because I know it's coming. Spend 6 weeks on the draft. My co-researchers are nervous too. Jennifer, my lead research assistant. Rachel, are you sure about this? No, I tell her, but the data is sure. Submit to peer review at 3 top journals. Wait, get first response back after 8 weeks. Reviewer comments are mixed. Reviewer 1, methodology is sound, but conclusions are inflammatory and potentially harmful. Reviewer 2, important findings that deserve publication despite controversial nature. Reviewer 3, this research appears designed to undermine feminist progress and should be rejected. Reviewer 3 is wrong, but I understand the fear. I'm afraid too. Afraid I've done something that will hurt people. afraid I've handed ammunition to those who want to roll back progress, afraid I'm betraying something important, but more afraid of what it means if we can't look at uncomfortable truths, more afraid of what happens to men who are suffering invisibly, more afraid of the empathy gap continuing to widen until we can't see each other at all. Revise and resubmit to the journal where reviewer 2 is most enthusiastic. Journal editor calls me directly. Dr. Rachel, I want to publish this, but I need you to be prepared for the response. I know, I say. No, I don't think you do. This will be career-defining. It will follow you forever. Should I not publish it? Long pause. That's not my call, but the findings are significant. If they're accurate and our reviewers believe they are, this is important work. Then we publish. Paper is scheduled for publication in 6 weeks. Start preparing for the fallout. Tell my department chair. She's sympathetic but concerned. Rachel, you know I support academic freedom, but this is going to create problems. I know. Are you absolutely certain about the methodology? Yes. We've had it reviewed externally multiple times. And you're certain this is worth it. Think about Thomas, alone with his feelings for 6 years. Think about Marcus, feeling like a utility. Think about David, blamed for his own pain. Think about all the men in the study who shared their struggles and were met with dismissal. Think about my own male clients who I'd failed to truly see. Yes, it's worth it. Paper publishes on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, my inbox is completely overwhelmed. Hundreds of emails. Some supportive, mostly from men thanking me. Many angry, mostly from feminist academics. Death threats from men's rights extremists. Somehow, I'm not on their side, I'm just reporting data. Death threats from radical feminists. I'm still a feminist, just an honest one. Media requests from everyone. Trending on social media, though I don't have accounts. My name is everywhere. Colleagues avoid me in hallways. One of my mentor's emails, disappointed you chose to publish this. You're doing harm. Another colleague, someone I barely know, stops by my office. Thank you. My son needed this research to exist. Get invited to speak at a conference on men's mental health. Get disinvited from a conference on feminist psychology. It's all happening so fast. Read through the public responses. The discourse is exactly what I feared. Misogynists using it to claim women are naturally cruel and unempathetic. Feminists claiming it's methodologically flawed without addressing the actual methodology. Almost nobody engaging with the actual findings honestly. Almost nobody asking, what do we do about this? If there's really an empathy gap, if women really are struggling to connect with male experiences, how do we fix it? That's the question I want to be asking. But everyone's too busy being angry or vindicated. Get call from a major news network wanting interview. Decline. This isn't about me becoming a personality. This is about the research speaking for itself. More emails. One from a man named Christopher. I showed my wife your study. She cried. She said she'd never thought about it like that. We're talking now, really talking. Thank you. One from a woman named Paula. You've set feminism back decades. Hope you're proud. Don't know how to feel about either. Start getting requests from other researchers. Some want to replicate the study. Some want to find flaws in it. Both are good, actually. That's how science works. Invite replication, invite scrutiny. If I'm wrong, I want to know. If I'm right, the findings need confirmation. 3 months after publication, sitting in my office, stack of mail, hundreds of emails, phone messages. Career has definitely changed forever. Some opportunities closed, others opened. But mostly, I'm different. I look at things differently now. Listen to my male clients differently. When Marcus tells me he feels like a utility now, I don't contextualize. I say, that sounds incredibly lonely and dehumanizing. Tell me more about that feeling. When David talks about being blamed for his divorce, I don't bring up statistics. I say, it sounds like you felt abandoned by everyone when you needed support most. When Thomas describes his isolation, I don't ask why he hasn't built a support network. I sit with him in the isolation and say, 6 years is a long time to be alone with your pain. Their responses are different. They open up more. They trust me more. They heal more. This is what empathy does. Get email from Jennifer, my research assistant. New replication study just published. Confirmed our findings. Thought you'd want to know. Read the new study. Different researchers, different population, similar methodology, same results. Women's empathy for male emotional experiences significantly lower than reverse. Gap is real. It's measurable. It's replicable. This is now established science, not just my controversial study. Feel relief and sadness. Relief that I wasn't wrong, that the work was solid. Sadness that the problem is confirmed. Think about what this means. We've spent necessary decades validating women's experiences, believing women, centering women's voices. That was right and needed. But somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing men as fully human. Stopped imagining their inner lives as complex and valid. Started seeing them as a category, a class, a demographic, not as individuals with genuine suffering. The political became so totalizing that the personal got lost, and the personal is where empathy lives. You can't empathize with a category, you can only empathize with a person. Somewhere we forgot that men are persons, not just agents of patriarchy or holders of privilege, but actual human beings with pain and fear and loneliness and confusion. Beings who deserve empathy, not despite their advantages, but because they're human. Empathy isn't a limited resource. Feeling for men's struggles doesn't mean ignoring women's. It means recognizing that suffering is suffering. That loneliness is loneliness. That pain is pain. Decide to write a follow-up piece. Not about the controversy, about the solution. If we've lost the ability to empathize with men, how do we rebuild it? Start with the same exercise I did. Actually imagine being male. Not theoretically, viscerally. Imagine the specific texture of male experience in modern world. The pressure, the isolation, the confusion, the fear. Imagine it without immediately comparing it to female experience. Just sit with it, feel it, validate it. Then ask, what do you need? What would help? What would healing look like? Work on this piece for weeks. It's less scientific, more reflective. But maybe that's what's needed. Science showed us the problem. Now we need wisdom for the solution. Publish it as an essay in a smaller journal. Response is quieter, but deeper. People actually engaging with ideas instead of just reacting. Get email from a therapist. I've completely changed how I work with male clients after reading your research. Thank you. Get email from a mother. I'm trying to understand my son better now. Your work helped me see I'd been dismissing his struggles. These responses matter more than the attention. Actual change, actual empathy, actual healing. 6 months after the original publication, sitting in supervision with a young therapist I'm mentoring. She's talking about a male client. He keeps complaining about pressure at work, but I mean, that's just capitalism. Everyone feels that. Stop her. Does everyone feel it the same way? She pauses. What do you mean? I mean, is his experience of that pressure maybe different because of gendered expectations, because his identity is tied to providing in ways that might not be true for everyone? She thinks, I hadn't thought about it that way. Try to imagine being him specifically, not just worker under capitalism, but him with his specific pressures, his specific fears, his specific sense of identity and worth. Watch her face change. Oh, I've been missing him completely. Yes, that's the empathy gap. And you can close it right now by choosing to really imagine his experience. She's quiet, processing. Then, how did you learn this? The hard way, by discovering I'd been doing the same thing for years. Feel something shift. This is how change happens. Not through controversy or attention. through one person at a time, choosing to really see, really feel, really empathize. My research showed the problem, but the solution is personal, individual, repeated daily. The solution is choosing to imagine the other, even when, especially when, the other has been categorized as privileged. Because privilege and pain coexist, because systems and individuals are different levels of analysis, because empathy doesn't require agreement about politics, it just requires willingness to feel with another human being. Year after publication. Get invitation to speak at major psychology conference. Panel on gender and empathy. Decide to accept. Prepare remarks carefully. When the day comes, room is packed. Can feel the tension. Half the audience hoping I'll recant, half hoping I'll double down. I do neither. Instead, I tell the truth. A year ago, I published research that terrified me. It still terrifies me. But the terror isn't about the professional consequences. It's about what the findings mean for us as a society. We are losing the ability to see each other. Not just women losing ability to see men, though that's what my research measured, but all of us, losing the capacity for genuine empathy across any difference. The empathy gap between genders is a symptom of something larger, our inability to hold complexity, to see someone as both privileged in some ways and struggling in others, to validate suffering without ranking it, to feel with people whose experiences differ from ours. The data on women's empathy for men isn't an indictment of women or feminism. It's a call to expand our circle of concern. To practice empathy as a skill, not assume it as a natural trait. To choose to imagine the inner lives of those we've categorized as other. That's the work. Not defending the research or arguing about it, but doing the actual work of empathetic imagination daily, personally, courageously. Room is silent. Then someone starts clapping. Then more, not everyone, maybe not even most, but enough. Enough to know the message reached someone. Afterward, a young male psychologist approaches. "Thank you," he says quietly. "I've felt invisible in this field for years." This meant everything. Older female colleague also stops me. "You made me rethink everything. I've been in practice 40 years. Your work showed me I'd stopped really seeing half my clients. These conversations are why it was worth it, not the citations or attention, the actual impact on actual empathy." Drive home that night. Think about the journey. From confident researcher certain of my findings before I found them, to terrified academic confronting uncomfortable truths, to something else now, someone who knows how little we understand each other, and how much that matters. The research showed women don't understand men anymore. Maybe we never did. Maybe nobody fully understands anyone different from them. But we can try. We can choose empathy over ideology. We can sit with discomfort instead of dismissing it. We can imagine the inner lives of those we've reduced to categories. That's not betraying feminism. That's fulfilling its original promise, full humanity for everyone. Get home, check email, new message from a researcher in another country. "Dr. Rachel, we've replicated your study here with similar findings. Would you collaborate on cross-cultural analysis?" Feel that mix of validation and sadness again. The problem is real, widespread, measurable. But now there's a community of researchers taking it seriously, trying to understand it, trying to find solutions. Reply: yes. This is the work now. Not just revealing the empathy gap, but closing it. One study, one conversation, one moment of genuine seeing at a time. Remember Thomas from the interviews, the man who hadn't talked about his feelings in 6 years. Wonder if he ever found someone who could really listen. Wonder if the research helped create space for men to be seen. Hope. So, that's all any of this is for. Not to win arguments or prove points, but to help people feel less alone. To build bridges across the gaps we've created. To remember that behind every demographic category is a human being with an inner life as complex as your own, deserving of empathy not because of their position in social hierarchies, but because they're human, because suffering is real regardless of context, because we're all just trying to make it through. Sit with that thought. Feel the weight of the year, the professional cost, the personal growth, the ongoing complexity. Worth it? Yes. Uncomfortable, costly, career-defining, but worth it. Because some truths need telling, even when they scare you, especially when they scare you. The research was never about men versus women. It was about our collective capacity for empathy and what happens when we lose it. We lost it. The data shows we lost it. But data also means we can measure recovery, can track progress, can know if we're rebuilding what we've broken. That's the next study, the intervention research. Can we teach empathy across gender lines? Can we close the gap we've measured? Don't know yet, but going to find out, because that's what science does, measures problems, tests solutions, and that's what humanity does, breaks connection, repairs it, over and over. The work continues. Be me, Dr. Rachel, feminist psychologist who discovered women don't understand men and chose intellectual honesty over ideological comfort, terrified by my own findings, but more terrified of what silence would mean. Published anyway. Paid the cost. Would do it again, because empathy matters. For everyone. Even the people we've stopped seeing. Especially them.